Hello, everybody. It's Ben from Grappling Insider. Today, I am super pumped to be joined by, and I don't use this word lightly, an absolute legend. He is. I'm going to try to narrow it down here. He's the second ever American-born gi world champion. He's a no gi world champion. He's competed in about 1 billion ADCCs. He was undefeated in MMA. Rafael Lovato Jr. Rafael, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course, man. Something that I did not mention, and I'm glad we're talking now, is just a couple weeks ago, you're coming off this huge win over a dangerous up-and-comer in Elder Cruz, who's #1. Let's talk about that first of all.
Uh-huh.
How was that experience? Obviously, like I said, you've competed on the biggest of biggest stages, but something about that win, watching it on television, it seemed pretty special. If you can tell me about that.
Yeah, it had a lot more significance and meaning for me, being that it was in Oklahoma City, in my town. So all my students were there. And, we just don't get events like that here in Oklahoma. I've traveled my whole life to compete, going to Brazil since I was a kid, California to train and compete, since I was little. So coming this far and then seeing the sport grow so much, having these beautiful professional events, and then having the biggest one, arguably outside of ADCC, come to our town and be able to put on a show for my students and have my family and friends there, be able to sleep in my own bed, and not have to travel and compete against one of the best in the world was super amazing. And I also had 2 guys on the undercard. One of them was a new black belt of mine, and he got a big win as well. The other one is my wrestling coach, and it was his first time to do a grappling event like that. And he lost by decision, but still did very well, all things considered. He hadn't competed in years, and it was a big stage to just come out and make your professional grappling debut. But all of that, just gave it a lot more meaning for me. Tough opponent and hometown, just representing and protecting the house. That was a special night.
For sure. Like I said, it seemed very special. I'm curious, did Flo reach out to you about an Oklahoma City event? Like, how did this come together? Because it is kind of a unique place to have an event like that.
Yeah, the thing is, Texas has really exploded. Austin, obviously, and that's kind of filtered through. There's been a lot of jiu-jitsu in Texas for quite some time, but I don't think it really got noticed until Flo made its way down to Austin and started holding events there. And then more and more people come and they can see, like, wow, there's a lot of jiu-jitsu, Austin, Dallas, Houston, the surrounding cities. Like, there's a lot going on down there. The competitions are always very big. And Oklahoma is only a few hours away, and we have the venue that they use is kind of like a perfect venue for professional grappling competition. And there's a lot of jiu-jitsu here as well. Not a lot of big names, but there's a lot of schools, and we have the wrestling background, so there's a lot of MMA that goes on here. And I mean, they just reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're thinking about Oklahoma. What venues could you recommend?" And I told them about this one, and it just worked out. And obviously, I think they were confident in the ability to sell tickets because I was on the card, and they know I have a lot of students, and everyone was going to come support. And we're not spoiled here, like Austin, some of those places now, they're already getting too used to having all the big name guys there and having big shows all the time. So, we're going to really appreciate it, and everyone's going to come, bring the energy. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, the energy was insane. They said that it was probably the most energized moment in Who's Number One history. Whenever I won, they never felt that kind of explosion of excitement. And so, you know, it was good, and hopefully they'll come back and we can do it again.
Yeah, it was definitely really cool to see. And I'm from Kansas City, so I feel like I kind of understand feeling like this part of the country kind of gets forgotten in terms of
Yeah.
jujitsu every once in a while. Um, do you ever, or have you ever kind of had a chip on your shoulder about, you're not from Southern California or New York City, these kind of hotbeds for the bigger schools. Did you ever get kind of, like I said, a chip on your shoulder about representing Oklahoma?
Um, Maybe a little bit, like in a positive way, to just motivate me. You know, like I think everyone should find their, you know, their purpose, their fire, and you know, come to love your story, your journey. And when I was coming up, like I used to think that it was something kind of working against me. Sometimes I could get in my own head when I was a kid competing in Brazil, stuff like that. It's like, man, these guys are training with all these black belts. They have access to all these competitions and everything. And I'm just a kid from Oklahoma, you know, and I'm training mainly with blue belts, um, you know, with nothing around and having to work that much harder to get access to this, you know, that level. And so I used to kind of weigh myself down with it, like, man, like if I win, if I don't win, it's okay because I'm not supposed to win, right? Um, but then as I grew up and I kind of I got a little more confident and more like yeah, maybe a little more of that chip on my shoulder. I, I figured out how to turn it into a positive and be like, yeah, I am gonna win because I do work that much harder and I'm sacrificing that much more to be here. You know, I don't have all the access, but I believe that you know, I'm making up for it with my work ethic and my dedication and all of that. And so definitely, I think I kind of carried that with me, and then I found the greater purpose in just trying to inspire all of those who don't have access to high level jujitsu, who are from the middle of nowhere places, especially you know, of course in the U.S. But then as the U.S. started to explode, you know, I also I have a lot of love for all the Europeans and the people, you know, like that are just in the middle of nowhere, like the Scandinavian countries and all these kind of um, uh, you know, kind of spots that like once again they're overlooked, right? Maybe they even just are all bulked into, oh, he's one of the European people, you know, they don't even know the country that they're from and where they're representing and all that kind of stuff. And and you know, I'm not just American, I'm from Oklahoma. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm in California or wherever where there is a lot of jiu-jitsu. You know, it's always been pretty difficult, but at the same time I'm very proud of that, and I've never left. You know, that's something I said in my post interviews. Like I've stayed in Oklahoma this whole time, trying to build something, you know, for the next generations and build up world class black belts here at home. Great instructors, opening up more schools, and so I'm really proud to be from here and represent that. And you know, for sure, like it's hard sometimes. I feel like a lot of people get a lot of extra exposure and opportunities because they're always right there, and there's always a camera, there's always, you know, just people ready to give them opportunities, you know. And I'm in the middle of nowhere, like, you know, there's not a lot of opportunities that come this way. But it's okay. You know, worked hard, and I'm very proud to have had people from all over the world come here to to train with me and to learn and be around my crew. So you know, we made it work. We made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're building a little empire down there, which is definitely cool for this part of the country. What's up, everyone? Chances are, if you're tuning into this interview, you probably train in jiu-jitsu, whether it's in the gi, no gi, or both. I've been training for about 13 long years now myself, and when it comes to the gear that I like to use, I personally recommend Rev Gear. They have a premium gi that I love. They have an ultralight competition gi. They have grappling shorts. They even have rash guards that are pretty understated in design but still really sharp looking. High quality gym bags, even backpacks that can hold multiple gis. So basically, just like everything you would need for BJJ training. The best part for me personally is that nothing on that site will break the bank. We're not talking $75, $80 rash guards or $250 gis. Everything that RevGear offers is super reasonably priced, which personally I love. To make it even sweeter, RevGear is offering a 10% discount on every purchase made on revgear.com when you use the promo code INSIDER10 at checkout. That's INSIDER10 for 10% off anything and everything you buy on the site. I will also drop a link in the video description below. Again, I cannot recommend their stuff enough. Everything I have from RevGear fits well, it's solidly made, and in my experience, holds up great in the long run. Again, head over to revgear.com. That's REVGEAR.com. Use the promo code INSIDER10 for 10% off any purchase made and get some quality gear at a phenomenal price. Now, back to the interview. I think it's interesting you bring up Europeans, right? They're kind of a little bit behind us, even in terms of like where jujitsu is arriving. Speaking of Norwegians, even I interviewed Tommy Langaker a few weeks ago, and he told me this story about, he was doing well in competing in small tournaments in Europe just as a blue belt, and then he went over and visited Art of Jiu-Jitsu, and was actually surprised that he could hang with the best guys in the world. And I'm curious if that happened to you, if there was ever a point, whether you were a kid or even as an adult, where you went to roll with people that you maybe thought were above you, and then it's like, no, I can completely hang with them.
Yes and no. I had moments when I was a kid, like, by the time I was 16, 17-year-old blue belt, transitioning to purple and that kind of stuff, like you're more recreational black belt, even good black belts that maybe just didn't compete that much. I definitely felt myself starting to give them a hard time, and maybe not get submitted, or maybe even like fire off some offense and really make them work. But anytime like a world class guy, I could feel the difference. So I definitely recognized that I was missing something, and everything changed for me once I got the invitation to start training with Saulo and Shanji Hibero. I competed against Saulo when I was 19. I was a brown belt, and that's how we met each other. And then from there, he invited me to train with him. When I was in Brazil, we saw each other in Brazil, and he invited me to go to his academy. He actually came to pick me up from my hotel and drove me to his school, and I trained with him and his competition team, and that was just life-changing right there, because it's one of those things where you can be really, really good in training, right? Like there's a difference between training and competition, and the world champion mindset and attitude, and how you create the performance, how you perform. You really, I think you need a mentor for that. You need someone to help you hone your focus and your mindset. And Sensei Saulo, he did that for me all the way. I was missing that. I had a lot of skills. I was young, and in training, I could do really well. Like I said, he hit blue, purple. I was hanging with black belts. By the time I was a brown belt, I was like beating black belts in training, and even in competition. But there was still a huge gap between where I was then, even as a brand new black belt, to becoming a black belt world champion. There was a huge gap up here, that I needed a mentor to help me hone in and find that version of myself. And Saulo did that for me, and I'm forever grateful for that.
So you've kind of touched on it a couple times, so I definitely want to talk about it. This competition mindset, because you're somebody who I would say, from an outsider perspective, just looking in, you have this reputation as a super intense competitor, somebody who always shows up. Like there is no competition that goes lightly for you. And this is probably something you could give an hour-long seminar about. But kind of what are kind of, I guess, what would be one piece of advice to any competitor that you could give to just sharpen that mindset? Like what has been your key to success?
There's a lot to it, and it's definitely very, it's a personal journey, something you have to hone in, and it's going to always be changing because we're always changing. Our story and our purpose is always changing. And so your why, your the root of why you're out there. Of course, we want to win world titles. We want to make our history and all that, but our why needs to be a little deeper. I mean, a lot deeper than just winning and winning a medal. It's the story, right? And what you're doing it for, the people that you love and are behind you, and the legacy that you're trying to create, how you want to be remembered. All those sort of things are super important. And so, I mean, that would be the root of it, for sure, is just, what is your why? I mean, that's actually a name of a book. It all starts with your why. And so everyone really, I think, needs to kind of have an internal reflection and figure that out first and foremost. And then from there, there's other things like being sure that you're confident. And confidence all starts with your preparation, your sacrifice, and building up that mental strength is just like honing in on your why, and using that to help you give your best effort in all of your training and your preparation. And then that backs up your confidence. And so everything in your head is just very positive. You're always, feeling that fire of, I know exactly what I'm doing this for, and I'm giving my best every day. I'm sacrificing, and you can look back every day and say, yeah, I was a champion today. And you still may have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, until the worlds, or until whatever it is that you're you're working for that moment. And but it's every day, every single day you're so tuned in to those things, and you're seeing it, you're feeling it. It's the emotion, and just the positive talk and the confidence every day. And then from there, I think it's important to remember to have fun, and be grateful. Just never, like, no matter what happens, remember that at the end of the day, you're doing what you love. We have our health. You have the opportunity to be out there and go for it. And there are plenty of times where we get injured. Other people that have physical limitations that don't even have that opportunity, they don't have that ability. And so, having been through injuries and the brain condition thing, that kept me from continuing in MMA, I just have different moments where I had to reset and just find my sense of gratitude all over again. And now I just try not to ever take it for granted, no matter what happens. And that gives me more strength too. Like, if you're grateful, you're happy. And if you're happy, you do better, and so I think once you can kind of put all those things together and find that perfect, a zone where you're tapping into all of those things, you're going to feel this special fire, and you can do anything when you're in that zone.
You're somebody who's accomplished kind of everything under the sun in grappling and even MMA. You're still competing at the absolute highest level of the sport. So I'm curious, what is your why?
Oh man, you know, right now it's very pure because I don't have anything to prove. I've already made my mark. I've made my history, and I can say today that it really is just the pure love of it, all the way. And in many ways, I feel like I'm doing better, because of that, because it is a little more pure. I don't have the same pressure to make my name, or to try to achieve a lifelong dream. I've achieved almost all my dreams. There are a couple things that I fell short on, that I definitely was giving my best to win. And it didn't happen. Maybe it still will. maybe I'll you know maybe I'll still be able to achieve one or two of those things. But right now it's like I said, just super pure. And definitely this last year, becoming a father really motivated me in a different way. Just like wanting to, even though they can't really recognize. I mean, they're too young, but being the example, and them, my babies. I have twins, so if I refer to them in the plural, that's why my babies. Um, they I want them to know that their father gave it all and never gave up. And I was still going for one more ADCC. I jumped into one more Worlds, and then I got the opportunity to fight MMA, again after 3.5 years away, and doing it in Japan, which was also a dream of mine since I was a kid. And if I would have stopped, and when everything went down with Bellator and me having relinquished my belt and the brain condition and all that, I could have easily have stopped right there. I'd already done so much in jiu-jitsu and grappling. I was an undefeated MMA world champion at that time. And I could have just said, all right, I'm good. There's my story. It's done. But I still felt like I had so much more in my heart, and in my gas tank. And Victor Hugo had just received his black belt. He was making his first year in 2020, and I was in such good shape. I was a world champion. I'm like, you know what? Let me go back to the gi. Let me go back to putting in a full season of jujitsu and grappling, and really seeing what I can still do at this age. And I had some ups and downs. I had some tough losses. Inside of that, I was kind of having to find myself all over again, because I didn't have a solid why. At that moment, I was a little bit lost, because all my focus and energy was on MMA, and I was fighting in front of thousands of people, getting paid very well, and becoming a world champion. And now I'm back in jiu-jitsu. I'm not even a top 10 guy. A lot of people don't even know who I am, because I had been away in MMA and all this stuff. And I had to refine myself all over again. And there were a lot of hardships in that, but I went for it. And I stayed on the path, and I really found my stride at the end of 21. And I had Victor Hugo and another one of our guys, Felipe Costa, who took third last weekend as well in his first year as a black belt. They're coming up, doing their thing. They're firing me up. And then I had a really good 22. I won the Europeans. There was like a 15-year gap from the first time I won the Europeans to the last time, in the adult division. So that was something special. Had a good showing at Worlds, good showing at ADCC. I didn't win, but I was still proud of going out on my shield and going all for one more. And then out of nowhere, this opportunity to fight in Japan came, and I looked back at it and I said, you know what? If I would have just rode off into the sunset after the Bellator situation, I wouldn't have been able to capitalize on that dream, because I wouldn't have been ready. I wouldn't have been in shape. I would have gone all those years without doing any sort of competition. And it was kind of a last minute thing too. I didn't have a big camp. It was only like 6 weeks. So I look back at it and I say, oh, that's why, and that's exactly what I wanted my kids to feel is just like, never give up on your dreams. And so that really was special for me. And now I just try to find these special things like competing in Brazil, which I did last month. That's special for me. Competing at home in front of my students, that's special for me. And so that's how I hone in on that fire. And it's all just love and, just wanted to continue pushing and leading from the front, inspire my guys, let them see the old man now still out there, still pushing everybody. And that's it. And hopefully my babies feel that energy now. And I'm going to do master stuff, for forever. And maybe one day, I'll be competing with my kids. If that's, something they want to do, I'm going to be right there with them.
That's incredible. I mean, it's honestly inspiring to hear. And I think what you're describing, that after MMA, or after Bellator, I should say, and you went back into grappling kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, I think what you're describing is just humility. So for me, I appreciate that. That sounds humble, just being able to accept where you're at.
Thank you.
Of course. I guess I'm curious, might be kind of a difficult question to answer for you, but how integral is competing to you doing jujitsu? In other words, you just said, of course, you want to compete as long as you possibly can. If that was taken away from you, would you still want to be on the mats every day practicing?
Oh yes, for sure. Jujitsu that's my craft. It's my passion, my love. Um, yeah, I have to be on the mats. Everything about it, just constantly learning. And the energy exchange with my students and they're my best friends, like, Shanji and we've been training together 20 years. I have students that have been with me for 20 years. All my black belts are 10 plus years. I have several black belts all over the world, several here at home, and then have them all over the world. And that's what we do. We see each other, we talk, we hug, and it's just like, okay, let's put on our gis and start to roll. And I say, what are you working on? What are you, we start learning from each other. We just talk about jiu-jitsu, and that will never change for me. Now I'm definitely a very competitive person, and I love the feeling of having a mission, and something that pushes me to be at my best physically, technically, mentally. I love to be in the gym every day too. I really like to feel my body, um, you know, just being in shape. I just like to be in shape. That's all I can say. Fit, healthy. I don't take my body for granted, and moving every day in some shape or form is extremely important to me. And that's one of the things I love most about martial arts is the movement. It's just feeling my mind and body connection, and feeling my moves, landing at the perfect time, being in the perfect place, and everything clicking and being efficient. You feel that perfect technical execution, just the same way you thought it out in your head, and it happens physically. It's a very beautiful feeling for me. And I love to feel that on the mats training. But then in competition, it's an extra level of satisfaction, because this person has prepared to be at their best. Everyone knows who I am. They're fired up to beat me. They know my game. It's very obvious. Like, you have like practically 20 plus years of footage to watch me, so I'm no secret. Like, I do what I do. And to still be able to perform and beat that person, I love that feeling. And that's me being on a mission, and two missions collide. Not everyone has that competitive fire. I see a lot of the guys that I came up with now, they're retired and they're happy and they're good, and they don't really, I know they still keep themselves in shape. They still train hard, get their guys ready and stuff, but they don't really have the fire to compete anymore. And I get it. It's a lot, and our bodies have been through a lot, and mentally, it's a little draining. there's so many other things, business, family, and all that. I just don't think I'm ever going to be able to turn that off completely. Maybe it becomes less, maybe it's just one or two things a year. And, of course, masters is going to be a little less stressful, right? Like everyone else is older and they're dealing with things and family and business and whatever. But like I said, I don't see myself ever being able to shut it off. Um, it's just who I am. It's part of me. And at the same time, going back to my kids, I want them to see their dad putting it on the line, and risking failure, and if I lose, that'll be an opportunity for me to, show them how to hold my head high and how to deal with failure, and keep going. And if I win, they get to see their dad win, and and it's just, it'll be a good time no matter what.
That's beautiful. You got me fired up, man. Um, Talk to me a little bit more about becoming a father, especially to twins. Like, it makes a ton of sense why you would have now this new why, you would have this extra motivation. But I got to imagine being a first time father with twins. Talk to me about kind of the stresses that fatherhood may have added to your life.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, shout out to my wife. She's a super mom, super wife, like all the way. As you can see, I didn't really slow down too much. I mean, my goodness, I did the biggest events ever in the last year: Worlds, ADCC. I fought MMA in Japan. I went to Brazil, and then I just had this huge super fight at Who's Number One. All that's been in the last year since being a father, and so there's no way, like, she's a world champion, black belt world champion, wife and mother, and it's definitely teamwork, 100% teamwork. We have to communicate, we have to, everything has to be just right. But yeah, I mean, it's hard, especially ADCC. Like, I got injured leading up to ADCC, and that was, in September. They were born in July, so we're talking about within the first 3 months, when they're waking up every few hours and, feeding and changing and all that in the middle of the night. It's times two, so we took shifts. I would stay up to like 2 in the morning, 2:30, do that shift. Then I would go to sleep, and then she would start with the next round, at like the 4 or 5 o'clock mark, and do the 8 o'clock mark, so I could manage to get 6 hours of sleep. And then I would get up for camp, try to spend a little bit of time, help them out, and then I'm off, and so I mean, first off, she just was amazing. And uh, you know, eh, like the difference I notice is, like, before I come home and it's like the work is done, you can relax, you can recover. And now it's like you come home and there's more work, it's like you're working at home too. And I need to have extra time in my day, whether it's in the morning, trying to spend at least a solid hour to 2 hours with the babies, just, play with them, hug them, love them, do the stuff, change them, whatever. Um, get that time in, or I need to go home earlier before bedtime and try to get a little bit of time with them, before they go to sleep. So it's just one more thing in the schedule. But, I also believe that, like, having camps, training camps, fight camps for all the biggest events for all these years, and being able to operate under pressure and stress, and have a tight schedule. I've been juggling a million things my whole life, and I became a business owner at 25 years old, deep in the middle of my career, and so I've always had a lot on my plate, and so I think a certain part of being a parent is also just being able to manage that, the stress, the time management, having a tight schedule, all that kind of stuff. It's like being a competitor. It's the life of a competitor. And so I also feel like, I had a little bit of an advantage. And my wife, same thing. She was already ready to the crazy life of traveling and events and camps and working nonstop, you know, and all that. And now we're raising our kids inside of that. They went to Japan for my fight there. They've already been to Colombia, you know, they've been to Miami. We're traveling with them. They're feeling that fight energy, you know, and having a million people in the house that are my training partners and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, they're going to just fit right on in and nothing changes.
And that's awesome. They don't even know how cool of a life they're leading before, not even a year old yet. They don't even know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Their passports already got some stamps.
that's impressive. So you had the fight in Japan. Is the door closed completely on a potential MMA return if any other opportunities present themselves?
Yeah. So I can't fight in the U.S. That's just that's impossible. I'll never be able to convince a commission for that. I tried. I spent almost 2 years working on that before I finally just gave up. Um, so Japan is basically where it's going to have to be. I tried ONE FC. They also weren't interested. So you know, the show that I fought at, Inoki Bumbaye, if they told me it's not if they're definitely planning on another one this year, and I would certainly entertain another opportunity. Or if Verizon happened to give me a shout, I would definitely entertain it and think about it. Talk to my team about it. I wouldn't mind doing one more. I think just personally, um, you know, I'm turning 40 in a couple of weeks, and so I think doing one fight at 40 and just being able to see all the different decades that I've went through and challenged myself. Um, you know, I still would have the fire for that. Um, but you know, once the babies they start growing up a little more, I also want to, like, you know, doing these fight camps and missing time, you know, like and just the pressure, the stress. I think obviously I'm about to be 40, so the time window is closing. But you know, one more definitely I would think about it. And uh you know, I still have more to show on that side of things too. So we'll see what happens. But I'm very content. I don't feel like I need to force anything now. I had a very unsatisfied, like uncontent feeling before that last fight in Japan, just because I didn't have the control. You know, everyone else ended my career for me. It wasn't my decision, you know, and I was on top, you know, as a world champion. It's like, man, how are you going to do this to me right now? You know? And so I always wanted that. Um, but then I got it, you know, the dream came true, and it was destiny the way it happened. And it was beautiful. So I'm very happy and grateful, and I don't feel like I have to, you know, push it. But if something good comes along, yeah, 9 times out of 10, you'll probably see me do it again.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think with the Bellator situation, I definitely feel for you. I have to assume that you were sitting there one day thinking, I'm going to defend this belt X amount of times. These are the guys I'm excited to fight. And then, like you said, with no control over the situation, it's taken out from under you.
Yeah. You know, I was worried because uh, I found out about it in the camp leading up to the title fight. So as some people don't realize that the timeline, you know, in that camp for the title fight, that was the first time I was required to get a brain scan done to fight. Every other place that I'd fought at did not require a brain scan. So I had no idea that I had this condition. But then the title fight was in London, and the commission there did require. So, you know, I get this routine scan done. I'm thinking, oh, everything is gonna be fine. I have my paper. It's like, hey, just sign my paper, let them know everything's good. Let's, you know, just check this off the list and move on. And you know, that's when the radiologist said, hey, you know, your brain, it's not normal. There's some issues there. He didn't even recognize what it was, and he was like, you need to see a specialist, blah 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 blah. I would not suggest you continue fighting. And I'm like, okay, so are you not going to sign my paper? You know what I mean? And he was like, no, I'm not signing your paper. And then that's when everything started. And it took me a month, seeing doctors, and just, it was a terrible time. Like, it was really, really hard to do a camp, finding out that you have this health issue, and it could be potentially super dangerous. And then at the same time, still wanting to fulfill my dream and just get the opportunity to fight and not know if it's going to happen or not while I'm in the middle of a camp, So it was 6 weeks out, and then it took me 4 weeks, the main part of the camp, before I finally got approved to fight. And then a week later, I'm on a plane going to London, and so actually it was just a few days later. So it was just a very stressful time. But once I won, I was just like, okay, they approved me. So now everyone else is going to approve me, no problem. But then I heard about California being super strict, and that's what the rematch was going to be. I'd already signed the contract. Everything was done. I'd actually even started my camp for the second fight, for the rematch. And then a doctor that was on the commission for the fight in London, he actually called me and said, hey, we've been reviewing your case. We actually created a panel because it was just such a rare situation. And they were like, hey, we would never approve you to fight here again. And we are going to strongly encourage every other commission to say no to you as well. And I'm like, oh, great. Perfect. And so I call up Rich from Bellator, and I'm like, hey, Rich, I'm super concerned about California not approving this fight. I'm not going to do another camp, not knowing if this is going to happen or not. Let's start the process now, much earlier, just to make sure. This was like early November, and the fight was supposed to be at the end of January. And yeah, basically we sent everything into California, and they all said no. So I had like, once I won, I was on this super high, and I'm like, yes, we did it. And it was the perfect time because they were up to renegotiate my contract. So now I'm going to get a fat contract, and be able to, I had dreams of Madison Square Garden. I also had the dream of Japan, and Bellator did stuff with Japan and Ryzen and all that. I'm like, man, now I'm going to get to call all my shots. We're going to fight here. We're going to fight there. My name's going to be on top of the arenas. It's going to be amazing, and we're going to finally get paid. And, my team deserves it. My coaches, I was excited for all of us to just live the champion life, and so I thought, yeah, it's going to work. But then as soon as I got that call from that doctor in London, it all just went down. So yeah, that's my story. But I'm very grateful for it. You see, I had this ribbon on right now. Like, I didn't even know anything about cavernoma when they said it to me. I was like, what is that? Never heard of it. But it's actually a very common condition. It's not that rare. Like 1 in 500 people in the US have it. And probably more. They just don't know because they don't have a reason to get a brain scan done. They're living with it without any symptoms. And that was me. I had no symptoms. But there are a lot of people that have it, that have extreme symptoms right away, even as a child, because many times, usually it's hereditary. You're born with it. That's how it was with me. I had the genetic disorder. I had the test done to find out if it was genetic or not. And it was. So I've had it my whole life, and I've been getting hit in my head my whole life, but some people have this, and, they have vision issues, paralysis, seizures, even going into comas, and worst case is death. And so, I'm just extremely grateful for my health, and the fact that I got to do that fight. And, to this day, I still don't have any symptoms. I'm perfectly fine. It could change one day. But there are plenty of people that go all the way old age and never have an issue, or maybe they have an issue at the very end of their life, So, but come to find out, June is Cavernoma Awareness Month, which is my birthday month. which is the month that I won the title. Red is my favorite color. You know, my logo has red in it. Um, and red is the champion color. You know, every champion, they wear the red gloves when they fight. And so it felt like it was meant to be. And that's when I went on Joe's show, and I was just like, you know, hey, I want to give a sense of awareness to this, encourage people to get brain scans done, you know, at some point in their life to figure out, hey, just make sure you're healthy up there. And you know, also just try to give back. You know, I donate to the Angioma Alliance that funds research for cavernoma. You know, and so it's who I am, and it's my story. So, you know, I'm happy to talk about it and be a voice for cavernoma.
I love it. And, you know, I'm happy to see where you're at today, getting that fight in Japan, still competing in like the biggest grappling tournaments there are. You know, it's cool to see you where you're at. You've had this super long career in jiu-jitsu, and MMA, but it started in jiu-jitsu. You're still in jiu-jitsu. I'm curious. I like to ask athletes, like, what could jiu-jitsu be doing better as a culture? Like, what would you like to see changed in this community, if anything?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, um, it's hard to say because everything, you know, everything happens to get to the destination, right? So I don't I can't say anything is bad necessarily because there's always going to be a positive ending or something positive to it. You know, there was a phase where like 50-50 was really prevalent, and there were a lot of you know, boring finals at some of the big tournaments, and you know, it can still happen every now and then, but I think everyone's gotten better at dealing with it, and the organizations have done a good job of trying to be a little more um, aggressive with you know, stalling calls or just resetting and changing the rules a little bit to make sure that doesn't happen. At the end of the day, you know, there's no perfect rule set, you know, and it always is. It's going to come down to the athletes and how they perform, you know, because if you're the best in the world and you want to make it an even match, you know, you're going to be good enough to do that, you know. So that exists. Professionally, it's already gotten to a level that I never dreamed of. I mean, ADCC last year was, man, that was super special, just incredible. Like, I can't even say it was a dream come true because I didn't even have the bandwidth to dream of a grappling event that big and looking up in an audience that big, like a big MMA fight, like a UFC, but it's for grappling, you know? And that's creating, you know, it's just, we're hitting new levels, where professional grappling is booming, um, you know, and like the opportunities are really great for people to compete professionally in jiu-jitsu and not have to go to MMA. When I was coming up, that was like kind of a must, you know, if you wanted to achieve a new level of professional success and get paid for competition, you had to compete in MMA. Now that's not the case. You know, gi jiu-jitsu, um, I think it's getting a little bit of a bad rap. Like, it's just, I think some of the narrative that's going on, and you know, people are talking about it in a way like it's not exciting. But man, the Worlds last weekend was freaking amazing, amazing. Like, I don't see that. You know, it's there. There's plenty of exciting fighters, plenty of exciting fights, and plenty of submissions still going on at the highest level. You know, Victor Hugo, he submitted 5 out of 8. He submitted 6 out of 7 in Brazil, 5 out of 8 at the Worlds. It was the first absolute finals submission in 14 years since Hajar did it in 2009. And there's only 4 absolute finals that ended in submission, in 28 years of the worlds. And like I said, the last one was 14 years ago, but Victor Hugo did it 2 days ago, So for me, gi jiu-jitsu is still thriving, still beautiful. I wish maybe the narrative changed a little bit about gi jiu-jitsu. But then like BJJ Stars had an amazing professional show. Their last one, their absolute bracket was sick, like a lot of great fights. So I'm happy with where that's at. I think going off that narrative, there's a lot of people that think they can only do gi or only do no gi successfully. To me, that doesn't make sense. I think it all makes us better. And yeah, to a certain extent, when the major stuff comes around, like if you're going to do ADCC, yeah, you probably need to just train no gi prevalently for 2 or 3 months, But all the best guys in no gi, like they're still gi guys. Like and some of these guys that only do no gi now, they still came up in the gi. Like people forget that, Like Eddie Bravo was a black belt in the gi, competed in the gi a lot. There's video of Gordon and Craig competing in the gi, training in the gi, coming up in a gi, Yeah, they drop it and then they focus on that thing. And sure, maybe that helps them a little bit, but it's hard to say because maybe they could be even better if they did both. You don't know. Definitely they would risk more losses. But overall, I think gi helps no gi helps gi. And I also think MMA helps it all too. I know I'm a better jiu-jitsu artist and practitioner because of my experience in all three. 100%. My capacity just expands all the way. It's like you got to train wrestling too, right? But wrestling doesn't necessarily, traditional wrestling doesn't translate into no gi, even though they're both not wearing a gi. There are a lot of things about wrestling that just isn't going to work in a grappling competition, or is just too risky, doesn't make sense, but you still train wrestling, and that's how I see the gi too. Okay, yeah, there's certain things that aren't going to perfectly translate, but it can still make your no gi better. And all around, I see it all around: judo, wrestling, I mean, even striking. There are certain aspects about my ground game that I found, the same lessons being taught to me in striking. And I bring that to my ground game, and I'm like, man, the posture, the shell, this is my frames, this is how I protect myself, when you're getting smashed. Like I'm a martial artist, and so I find I'm a student of everything, and I can see how it all makes me better. So that's something that I try to be the voice of, and I think everyone should train everything and just be a student and learn. It only makes you better. And hey, remember that most of the time, the things you don't want to do or are uncomfortable or are hard, blah 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 blah. Those are the things that make you better. Those are the things you should do. And so I'm always going to be that voice.
Man, I love it. I feel like there's probably jiu-jitsu guys everywhere that wanted to mute that part about doing wrestling. Nobody likes it. So one more
or
topic.
Doing the gi.
Yeah, exactly. No, I would say right now from a hobbyist perspective, no-gi is like super fun. I feel like a lot of just not even schools with high-level competitors, you're seeing a burst in no-gi right now because it feels fun. But I think to your point, if you actually want to get better, you need to put on the gi.
Yeah, they all help each other.
So like I said, one more topic. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't pick your brain about jiu-jitsu technique a little bit. You were just kind of talking about it. You are big in timeless jiu-jitsu. That is kind of your brand. What is your elevator spiel for what exactly is timeless jiu-jitsu?
Oh man, there's a lot of elements to it. A lot of it is based on mindset as well, and just what the purpose is. At the end of the day, like well beyond competition or anything else, I just want to do what I love for the rest of my life. That's it. And I want to be able to do it at the highest level possible. Obviously when you start getting in your 50s to 60s, you're going to slow down a little bit, of course. And so it's like, how can we create a package of of body, mind, and technique that once you live that proper lifestyle, that's tapping into each of those elements, we can create a very like longevity of living our passion. That's why I use the infinity symbol, because it doesn't end. Just like we're always learning, we're always evolving. The art itself is always evolving. Um, we got to keep ourselves in that game, forever, so we can keep learning, so we can keep reaping the benefits, the all the beautiful things that jiu-jitsu gives to us in our lives, in our bodies, and just being better people, and the connection to the community and everything. Like, I want to be able to get on those mats for the rest of my life and train and have fun. Especially now as a father, like, I'm starting at a late age. Most people have kids. I don't say most people. It's, whatever. There's definitely a lot of older or more mature people these days having kids. But when my kids are 15, I'm going to be 55, or 54. When they're 16, when my boy's 16 and he wants to kick his dad's ass, I'm going to have to be ready. You know what I mean? So, body, mind, all right, like the lifestyle, and of course the technique. You wanted to ask about technique specifically. I definitely believe that there are techniques that we can apply effectively, easier than others. There are certain techniques that will work for you for the long haul, no matter what level you're up against, and athleticism that you're up against. Um, like closed guard is closed guard, right? If I'm a great pressure passer, like, I'm always going to have my weight. If I can use my weight to its maximum efficiency, I can wear you out, I can smash you, can make you tired, and I'm going to make the submission that much easier. Basically, it's, I don't even want to say the fundamentals, the classics, whatever. Like, I think when you put the word fundamental or basic into it, people automatically assume that it's easy. Oh, just because I learned this in my first week, I learn it now, and then I got it and I'm good. And I go on over here, and then I start working on the fancy, like, advanced stuff, but in my opinion, those fundamentals are the hardest things to master, and they deserve the most amount of time and energy. And that's a big part of the timeless jiu-jitsu. What I preach about it is like, hey, keep your eyes on these things, because they're going to serve you forever. And at some point, you're going to lose the speed. You're going to lose some strength. You're going to lose flexibility. Your hands are going to hurt. You're going to have a knee injury, your neck, your back. Some of these things that feel good now or work now, they're not going to pay dividends forever. And at some point, you're going to need to come and work on these other things, and slow the game down, and be able to have an answer, for the younger generation that's always coming up with these new things. They're working on all this new stuff, and a lot of times they forget. I see a lot of great, I see and train and feel, from a lot of high level guys, in some of these positions, some of these situations, they get lost because that's not what they focus on. They don't spend the most amount of time in these situations. And so, like the classic stuff, because it's not in style, or whatever, a lot of times they work even easier or better, because the new generation maybe isn't quite familiar with how to deal with it, because they're not feeling it. Everyone is kind of doing the same thing, but at the same time, I have to stay sharp. I have to stay up on the new modern things. It's not like I can't keep learning and keep evolving. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm definitely in there being a student all the time. I had these young guys that I mentioned, Victor, Felipe, like, they keep me sharp. They keep me up on the new tricks and things that they're coming up with, but I'm still applying the same moves to them. And I love, like, Victor, how much close guard did he do? last weekend. He submitted his weight class final with a closed guard triangle. You know, Felipe in his quarterfinals, he smothered, smashed, mounted, and cross choked his quarterfinals to get into the Sunday semifinals. You know, they're keeping a lot of the classic style alive for us and showing its effectiveness. I still do my best to show the effectiveness. You know, last year Europeans, all I did was my timeless style. You know, who's number one? Close guard, muscle sweep. You know, or what do they call it? The lumberjack sweep. You know, basics, right? But it's always going to work for you. And you know, so that's a big part of the timeless. But it's not just technique though. Like mindset, taking care of our bodies, recovering, our approach to training when you're in your 30s, 40s, and beyond. Like, how do you train? You know, how do you keep getting better and you know, take care of your body at the same time? Where you focus your energy and your technique. All of these things are a part of the Timeless Jiu-Jitsu package. And that's definitely one of those whys that I feel today that I love to be an example of. Because now it's not so much about showing people that, hey, you can do it when you live in Oklahoma or whatever. It's about, hey, you can still do this when you're 40, you know, and still do it at a high level and kind of break those barriers that people can have in their head. Oh, I'm too old or whatever. No, that's not the case at all. And like I said, at the end of the day, you're going to see me in my 50s, in my 60s. I'm still going to be out there and master 7 or 8 or however high it goes, and doing my best to still show these same techniques.
I love it. I love it. Again, man, it's inspirational to hear. As somebody who has hurt knees and years of jiu-jitsu on my body, feeling old, it's inspiring to hear your perspective, I should say. So that was, yeah, of course. So that was all I had for you today, man. If there's anything else you want to say, now is your time. But otherwise, I just want to thank you again. Like, super insightful to hear somebody from your perspective, your experience, talk about jiu-jitsu. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just thank you for the opportunity. Thanks to all the fans and supporters out there. You know, I've received a lot of love recently from these last competitions that I did, and really means a lot to me. And I hope people just check out Timeless Jiu-Jitsu. You know, I have the website, timelessjiujitsu.com. There's a newsletter you can sign up for. I send out emails, you know, techniques. I have a Facebook group. I share things in there, Timeless Jiu-Jitsu Facebook group. So those are all like just free things that people can get in on. And then the website itself is a subscription-based website that people can sign up for if they want to check out more. There's a lot into it, and a lot of you know, things beyond just like techniques, you know, the mindset, and different lives and talks that I've done. But you know, have seminar footage, class footage, competition breakdowns, and then of course just a library full, like an encyclopedia full of you know, timeless jiu-jitsu techniques. So all that's there and available, you know, and people can follow me on Instagram if they don't already. I definitely try to put some inspirational stuff there as well. And that's it, man. Thanks for the opportunity, and yeah, thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Of course. Thank you, man.